Welcome to Sometimes There's Side Eye, a podcast about two friends having real and unfiltered conversations about dogs and people. Listen as we talk about our lives with dogs, training, behavior, share some laughs, and a whole lot of banter. I'm Heather.
And I'm Christy. Heather, what are we talking about this week?
Today, we have a very exciting guest, and that is Marissa Schneider. And Marissa is joining us to kick off our dog sports series, and we are so excited to have her. So, welcome, Marissa.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you guys.
I know, we're super excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining.
Yes.
Marissa is someone who we are friends with on socials, and then I also have met through in person now through doing dog sports. And so we kind of made this connection. And Christy and I were talking about when do we want to have Marissa on because we just love her content and her training journey. And when we got the idea for dog sports, we were like, this is it.
And we just love the relationship you have with your dogs as well, where you're competing in things, but you still keep that relationship as center, which was important to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're pets. Like at the end of the day, they live in my house. They're part of my family. They're not just like working dogs like a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we love that. And obviously, relationship is a huge theme of our podcast. So it makes perfect sense. So, if we can kick it off, can you tell us about the dogs that you live with and a favorite thing about each of them?
Yeah, so right now I have two dogs. My boyfriend Noah and I have two dogs, Coda and Aspen. So Coda's a 4-year-old cattle dog English Shepherd mix. She's 50-50 of each of those breeds.
Hmm.
And I guess my favorite thing about her is how like intelligent and like smart she is. She's like actually the smartest dog I've ever met and worked with. And she just is able to critically think and figure things out so quickly. It just amazes me every single day.
Wow.
And then Aspen is a 6-year-old husky mix. He's obviously very goofy because of his husky side, but he's so easygoing and like confident. He'll like do anything you want. He's always down for whatever, whether it's like relaxing on the couch or going on a hike or a run, going swimming. He just like is happy to be there with you and adventure. So I think that's my favorite part of him.
Did you have Aspen first?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So
Yep,
then,
adopted him in 2019. He was about 10 months old, and then about, I guess, a year and a half later, adopted Coda.
okay. Awesome. That's awesome. So both adopted dogs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Coda was surrendered in a litter to a rescue from like an Amish farm. She was bred to be like a working farm dog, not health tested, not anything crazy, but just part of an Amish breeding. And then they couldn't sell all the puppies. So a few of them got surrendered to a rescue. Luckily, I happened upon her and she was like 8.5, 9 weeks old, one of 9 puppies. And I would love to see where the rest are, but I only
Oh,
I've seen one picture of one of her siblings because the rest were homed before they hit the rescue.
oh,
Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
so, and then Aspen was just like a rehome sort of situation, but he was passed around a lot. So he had like 4 or 5 different homes where I got him, and a mutual friend was fostering him. She kind of took him in. She had huskies herself and kind of fell in love with him, but wasn't in the place to keep him. So she's like, I'm gonna find the right place. Contacted her. I met him, and I was like, this is the dog. This is the one. Um,
oh.
and so we took him home, but he had a slew of different things going on. He had like severe isolation anxiety, separation anxiety. I think just from being passed around so much, he was
Mm-hmm.
like, somebody's gonna leave me. This isn't
Yeah.
my home. And then had a ton of like reactivity issues with other dogs. So he was definitely a learning experience and was a little bit older. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't quite as smooth as getting, 9-week-old little Coda.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mhm.
yeah.
Was Aspen the one who made you start down the training road? Because, like, we all have that one. Yeah, he was the dog.
Yeah, I actually, as a kid, I rode horses, and then also I was in 4-H, if you know what that is.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I showed my dog that I had as a kid. So we did obedience and we did agility
Oh.
growing up, and probably for like 5 or 6 years. So I'd show in like the county, the state fairs, did all of that. He was a rescue dog as well,
Mm-hmm.
but he wasn't quite his favorite thing to do, but he was there for the treats. So we kind of
Okay.
that I think started my passion. And then I always knew like when I got a dog, I was going to want to try to do those things with them. So Aspen was full of energy, loved to do stuff. And I was like, this is perfect. We'll just, try some stuff out. All I really knew about was like agility and obedience. So I was like, we'll try some agility classes. And that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah. And so what sports do you do with your dogs?
Yeah, they both do pretty much the same sports, but like to very different degrees.
I love that.
And they both enjoy them for the most part. Aspen sometimes like, no, I'll just, I'll come and support my sister. But we do dock diving, barn hunt, rally, and then just starting some obedience on our own. Kind of want to get into some competition obedience. And then disc, done a couple different types of discs. So like freestyle disc, up dog, skyhounds, different types of competitions there. And then fast cat, which is lure coursing, and agility. Yeah.
Oh, you do it all.
Yes. Yeah, I stay busy. I've definitely dialed back on a few of those things. Like agility is one of those sports where it takes a lot of time to be good at it and to like really be safe with it. So I've definitely stopped taking agility classes for a little bit until I can really focus my time on it. Instead, kind of been dipping my toes in all the other areas. So
Yeah, agility is one of those sports where it's like you want to be really committed to it, I feel like. And to be competitive in the not necessarily against others, but on the
yeah.
courses. And to be safe with your dog, you really need to be all in, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. And I haven't found a place or like a trainer that I'm like absolutely in love with. And I'm all about safety and making sure my dogs don't get injured and not rushing things. I know that's a little bit of a struggle sometimes, just finding someone who's not just trying to get you doing a whole course. I'm like, I don't mind if I'm, doing one obstacle for a certain amount of time just to make sure it's safe and keeping the dogs healthy. So,
Yeah, understandable.
yeah.
And so both of the dogs do all the sports, but do they have preferences?
Yes. So I would say for Aspen, so he does all the sports when he wants to. So sometimes he does them. He's very much like what's in it for me. So if there's not like a reward that he's super excited about at the end of the game, then he's like, I'll do it sometimes, sometimes not. So like dock diving, he likes a lot when it's warm out, but if the water is even slightly cold, he's like, no, it's not worth it for me. And recently he did great at the trial that we had. The water was like 80 something degrees, but the water was like 70 degrees the week before. And he was like, no, that's too cold.
Yeah, Tiago requires 76 degrees.
Yep. So
So
I'm like, all right. And I won't like force him obviously to do it if it's too cold. I'm like, no, everyone's like, oh, it's like 90 degrees out. He can't jump yet. I'm like, the water's not warm
yeah.
enough for his standards.
So he needs a heated pool at all
Yeah.
times.
Apparently Arizona's not warm enough. He's not even from here and it's not warm enough. And then yeah, he really likes, I think the best he would like fast cat. He has a really high prey drive. So fast cat channels that prey drive. He gets to chase something, gets to run. He's a husky, loves to run. Barn hunt, he does like, he's getting a little bit bored of it because he's like, oh, like I get to play with the tube, but I don't actually get to catch the rat. So that's his type of thing. Like he's not super, he's like, oh, I'll play with the tube, but where's the rat? Like that's what I really want. And then Frisbee, he's 50-50 shot if he's playing, but he'll go out there if he wants to do it that day. He's really into it. He'll score great. But if he's not, then he's just not playing and he'll go lay down. He'll be like, I'm not doing it today. So, yeah, those are probably his favorites. Obedience, because you get treats, lots of praise, and he's really good at it and he enjoys it. We train that a lot. And then fast cat are probably his favorite. Dock diving when it's warm enough. And then of course Coda is dock diving's her absolute favorite. It's everything to her. I think if she could dock dive every single day of her life, she would.
And she is excellent at it.
Yeah, she's become quite the little dock diver. Her average now this season is 29 feet, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
I just looked before this. I was like, she's the number 7 mixed breed dog in the country for the season. So that's pretty good.
Incredible.
Yeah, behind all the like whippet mixes and all the dogs that like have that in them.
I was gonna say that's pretty amazing. Okay, so we'll explain a little bit for listeners. The dogs that jump the longest traditionally at this point are whippets. So there's a lot of whippet sport mixes that are out in the game right now. So for for Coda to be 7 mixed breed, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and she continues to like get better. This is I think her second or third season doing dock diving, and she just got a new PB like a month ago, and that was kind of crazy to me. She hit 30 feet 5 inches, which is insane.
Whoa.
Wow.
I was not even believing it when it happened.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think she flies. I don't know what what is happening in her head when that's
Your
happening.
arm also has to be getting better at throwing.
Yeah. So luckily she's very forgiving because I'm not the best at throwing. Same with Frisbee. She's very good at catching and tracking, and I'm like trying my best, but I'm definitely not holding up the team there.
You know, when I think about her body structure, though, it does kind of remind me of a whippet mix different ones I've seen, like the border whips and stuff. So it does make sense to me because she's got that long, lean, athletic body. But man, 30 feet, that is incredible.
Yeah. She does get whippet mix sometimes when people see her. She has a long face and
Hmm.
she's like kind of lean, so it does make sense. Maybe she's just an honorary whippet at this point.
I like it.
That's awesome.
And you
Uh,
said she's been doing sports for the dock diving for a couple years. So how long have you been doing sports?
Yeah, started doing like actual sports with them in 2020. So right after we got Coda, I think she was probably about 9 or 10 months old when I started her in agility. And then a few months before that, started Aspen in agility. We were just doing classes at the time, somewhere local. And then I met a friend through dog Instagram, of course. And
Of course.
yeah, she was great, and we hung out a lot with our dogs. And then she convinced me to try toss and fetch frisbee with her with Coda. And at the time, like Coda had no interest really in it, and she was like, "Yeah, I'll kind of chase the frisbee, but for a ball." And then I was like, "I think she could really be good at this and like it." And so that kind of kickstarted our journey. Went from agility to frisbee, and then fast cat, and then everything kind of fell after that.
All the things.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep. It kind of happens that
And
way.
then
yeah.
Aspen just got like dragged along with it because the momentum had already started.
Yeah, I'm like, we'll try everything and see what you
Yeah,
guys like, and that's what we can do.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I like it.
I do
Yeah.
too. I think it's awesome. Isn't it lucky that they ended up with someone like you? I mean, I think about that stuff sometimes, and it's like, yes, you cultivate it, obviously, but at the same time, the ability and the want has to be there too, to some level. So it's
yeah,
pretty
Boy, do I have
amazing.
a dog for you.
Are you looking for a third? Because Jackson, we see a lot of potential in him, and he's extremely dog social.
I have my hands full right now.
I
But
Yeah.
I know, right? I think you do. And you have dreams for the future. So I
yeah,
know that you have a
yeah.
path that you are working towards. That's so funny. I know, Jackson, I hope
I know
you
my dream is to have him go to a sport home, to be honest, like a
I think
sport home or possibly a hoarder. Either one, he would be very happy in.
Steve, he honestly is like the most dog social dog I think I've ever met. It's pretty incredible. So, yeah, that's so funny.
That's good for
Um,
people in dog sports because they normally have more than one dog, so you have to
Yeah.
have some
I
dogs.
agree. And he has
Yeah,
a nice size, 30 pounds, but he looks like a miniature German Shepherd. It's very interesting.
there you go.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you do any specific training to prepare for these sports? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious based on your answers already, but if you can kind of just give a rundown on what that looks like.
Yeah. I think that like practicing the sport itself is super important, but also I focus a lot on like building drive, canine conditioning, and kind of specifically for certain sports. So I follow something in my canine conditioning course that I'm taking called the SAID principle. But basically, it's doing specific exercises and workouts with your dog that mimic the movements that they're doing in the sport to kind of build
Hmm.
the specific muscles, replicating the movements and like where the force is going to be impacting the dog's body so that they're prepared for whatever comes, especially like with dock diving, doing exercises that mimic that extreme stretch that she does in the air and like her head straight up, her legs fully extended, kind of mimicking those sort of movements in our training, doing a lot of that to build muscle endurance, and then do a lot of walking, a lot of running on the treadmill, and then just like basic obedience skills I think are important for any sort of sport that you're doing. So like just engagement overall, play, and building your relationship like with your dog, making sure that you guys can work as a team and you can read their behavior, what they're feeling, what their next move might be, and then just like working on the basics like recall, sit down, stand, and stay. All those things are helpful in pretty much every sport in some sort of capacity, whether or not it's while you're competing or just like while you're around the environment. So
yeah, we have talked to a couple other people, and Christy and I have talked about it before. Sometimes you go into something thinking that you're getting a dog who's like ready to go, and sometimes you need to create that in different ways. And you want to make sure that you are keeping the dog healthy and ready to go. You can help it along, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And making sure, I love that fitness course that you're taking. That makes so much sense to me. And thinking about how your dog moves in different areas, different ways. And then also the relationship part of it. Yes. Because could I continue to ask Tiago to do barn hunt? Sure. Does he want to be there? Nope. He's there for me,
yeah.
and I made the decision not to do it. And so that's that relationship part of it. And I love when people are focused on that, because our dogs don't really know that we're winning or not winning ribbons. They're there for us.
Yep.
They're there for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And you can tell when you watch people at these sort of sporting events, like what kind of relationship they have with their dog. And I think it really helps just overall with everything if you have a good relationship, whether or not that's like the physical aspect of it or just, having fun, having a good time, and them wanting to please you, wanting to, do something together.
Yeah.
And I've seen, even in classes, I've seen very serious people have really amazing relationships with their dogs still.
Yeah.
Like they're very serious about the sport. They're very competitive, but they have this like amazing soft relationship, even though they're really driven. Like I'm not that person. Like I thought
Me
it was,
neither.
I think it's funny when my dog screws up. I'm like, well, she's entertainment for y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and then I've seen like non-competitors be so serious.
And hard on their dogs.
Yeah.
Just so serious and harsh on their dogs for any little mistake. And I'm like, actually, that was the handler's fault. The dog's trying to do what you're saying. And so you can see both sides of that, which I think is when you said knowing your dog's next move because of that relationship. That's so important. And I love that you brought in play to that too. Just have fun and play too.
Yeah, to the dog, this is all just a game. It's not a competition. So regardless if you're at a trial or if you're at practice, it's just a game to them. And I just want them to have fun. If they're not having fun or if they get hurt, I'll pull them immediately. I'm not worried about, getting legs for the title or getting a sort of ribbon or anything at the end of the day. It's about, are they having fun? Are we working towards bettering ourselves?
Yeah, because they're your teammate. So if they're not in it fully and healthy and well, then the other half of the team is missing, right? So it's awesome to sort of put the focus on that and keep that in perspective. It's amazing to say. I mean, we oohed and awed when you said Coda is the 7th mixed breed dog right now. That's incredible. But I think for Christy and I, we ooh and ah because we know the relationship you have with Coda. And I believe that relationship mixed with everything else is what's driving that, right? So it's really cool to see a team that really has it figured out and dialed in to be an excelling team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that if we didn't do all of this like play and relationship building and drive building, which is all kind of mixed in together, I don't think that they would be as successful as they are. I think they'd be like, well, we can like do this, but it's just there'd be some sort of disconnect there.
Yeah. I get
Yeah,
that.
and what you said about drive, like you do some drive building. And so how do you think drive versus training plays into sports?
Yeah, drive with a dog and like the type of drive that they have can change what sports that your dogs will enjoy or like excel at. Aspen has very low toy drive naturally. I've built some up. There is, a genetic cap to how much drive a certain dog can have. He's never going to have Malinois toy drive, even with all the
Yeah.
training. So he really has that prey drive. He has food drive, which I've also built up, but that's a little bit easier. And so I'll focus on sports with him that kind of channel that. So like the fast cats, prey drive, barn hunt is prey drive to an extent. And then even with disc, instead of throwing it in the air, I'll do rollers with him, which is like when the disc rolls along the ground. It's legal
Oh.
fetch. We haven't played for a while, but that mimics prey, and he is way more likely to enjoy the game, go to retrieve the disc than if I were to throw it in the air. Then that sort of impacts how I'm approaching the sport. And same with Coda. Like I've built her drive up a lot since I got her. She's a whole different dog. But even at the start of Barn Hunt, she didn't have a lot of prey drive. She still, like, I wouldn't say naturally has that prey drive, but she is very biddable. She wants to please me. She's really wants to figure out the right answer. And so for her, it was training more like scent work, like, oh, we're not trying to go find and hunt the rat. Like
Mm.
I'm going to teach you the scent and then you're going to go find it. And eventually through that, she has built some prey drive, but not sure if like the rat wasn't in the tube, if she would go after it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where they kind of differ, but it's like how I approach each sport. I think that definitely has the type of drive they have has an impact on it. And like with the training, you can do so much training, but sometimes genetically they're going to have higher drive in one area than another. So kind of using that to your advantage.
Yeah.
Maybe if a dog doesn't have that prey drive, but they have really high food drive, and you're like, I want to do some sort of scent thing. Like, let's do scent work instead of barn hunt because
Mm-hmm.
you can reward with food pretty often with scent work. So,
Yeah.
kind of,
I remember when we were talking, and I remember you saying that you want more. You want more. And was it more drive? Was that what I can remember you saying, I want
yeah.
more, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I think I want more drive, natural drive. So
Yeah.
like with Coda specifically, like I built her up to have pretty high drive, but she with that drive, since it's not natural, comes with a lot of like arousal. She's not very clear-headed sometimes. So having a dog that has that high drive that you're able to cap and have a clear-headed dog working through that, she just genetically doesn't quite have that. We're still working on it, and I think we can definitely get better than where we are, but I kind of want more, definitely more toy drive for dog sports and more prey drive overall. She has pretty high toy drive, but she's particular. So it's like specific toys, specific scenarios. If it's not like everything's lined up, she's not going to have that same level of drive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of I'm wanting more drive all around, not
Yeah.
like specific
Yeah,
scenarios.
I
Yeah.
get it because Tater definitely has a problem keeping a clear head. You've seen it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I myself am definitely not as committed as you are. I mean, Tater could do probably anything, but yeah,
It's
yeah,
exhausting a little bit
yeah.
sometimes. Yeah.
Bulldogs are next level, man.
Yeah. Fun fact, Aspen's 25% American Bulldog.
Is
So
he?
Oh,
I think that might be where some of his stubbornness
That
gets
is very
in there.
interesting.
Yeah.
yes.
He's
So,
majority Husky, and then the next one is American Bulldog. Yeah.
what a weird mix.
And Boxer, and then like Super Mutt. Yeah. Kind of
But
crazy.
he does not look boxer bulldoggy.
Or,
Yeah, he has a big head. He has a big square head, which
Yeah,
I
that's true. He does have the
yeah,
square head.
yeah.
Oh,
Not the petite type head that a husky would have.
Mm,
yeah. But I would look at it and just be like, okay, maybe more Malamute because
Yeah,
their
yeah.
head's more,
yeah.
robust. But oh my, American Bulldog. Okay, well, how special for you.
So interesting.
A nice touch, just, some more challenges, but
Keep life interesting.
all good. Yeah.
Being that Coda and Aspen are both adopted, what are your experiences with competing with adopted dogs, good and bad? Because part of the reason we want to do this whole series is to just encourage people to go out and do things with their dogs. And a lot of our listeners have adopted dogs. So we want to hear, your experience on both sides of the coin.
Yeah. So I think it's extremely rewarding to have a rescue or adopted dog that does dog sports. And it's really cool to see, like, oh, they are not bred for this, but look at all these cool things we're doing. And just kind of a way to build a better relationship with your dog, regardless of what breed they are, where they come from. I've seen a lot of adopted and mixed breed dogs in sports, surprisingly. Definitely depends on your area and like what sort of sport you're doing. But I think that it can be a lot more rewarding. So you're like, look at all these things I overcame. Maybe if you get a shelter dog that came from a bad home before or something and overcame all of that, and then now you're also doing these dog sports, that's pretty impressive to me. And I think that, yeah, I definitely like got lucky in a lot of ways with how my dogs are, just because I didn't really know what I was gonna do, and I was like, well, they're kind of willing to try a lot of different things being adopted, and I think that's what I've seen with a lot of my friends as well. And yeah, I think it can be very rewarding. I guess the bad side, you would say, is maybe sometimes people don't take you seriously or like don't think that you're trying to be a competitor in the sport, like if that's what you're trying to do. Like I wouldn't say I'm the most serious about dog sports, but having, at least having Coda and dock diving, I'm like, well, she's like a pretty competitive dog, so
Yes,
I'm
she
gonna
is.
try to see what I can do and get her to her best potential. So that's kind of more competing with myself than other dogs, but sometimes having people not taking you seriously or see me walk up with this little cattle dog mutt and they're like, oh, whatever. And then yeah.
Versus maybe a Malinois that's been bred for 10 generations and they have
Yeah.
championship blah 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 in their background. Yes.
It's nice having like, for me at least, I have no expectations for my dogs because I'm like, you weren't bred to do this. We're just doing this for fun. We're playing the game. And like, I feel like sometimes people that get a well-bred dog or like a specific breed, they're like, oh, my whippet's doesn't want to do fast cat or doesn't want to do dock. And then they're kind of like not meeting certain expectations. Like for me, I have none. I have no expectations. I'm like, we're just trying to have fun and play the game.
Everything's a win.
Yeah, everything's a win. If Aspen even like tunnels during barn hunt, I'm like so excited. But maybe, someone with like a Jack Russell Terrier that's bred for rat hunting, it would be like, oh my gosh, this is not what I was expecting. But I'm
Yeah.
just, yeah, I think it makes you take everything a little bit more lighthearted and not have such hard expectations on them.
I think that is part of who you are, though, too, because you really are taking the win every single time, no matter what it is. But you have that relationship too, where you're like, these are my pets, these are my family
Yeah.
first. And I think that even if you had a well-bred dog someday, I think that you would still have that same relationship. But I do get what you're saying because sometimes there are those expectations.
For
I say
sure.
it myself. Trin comes from 4 generations of very sniffy dogs. If she had a broken nose, I would have been like, what? Yeah.
Yeah, I tell people too. I'm like they're like, oh, what do you want to focus on with your next dog? I'm like, whatever they enjoy,
Yes.
whatever they want to do. Like even though I'm gonna get a specific breed that has more of level of energy and drive that I want, I'm not gonna be like, oh, I got this dog for dock diving. I'm like, I'm getting it, and we'll try everything, and whatever they like is what we'll do.
Yep.
Not gonna put them into a box. They're dogs at the end of the day. They have preferences just like we do. Like I have preferences on sports and sometimes it doesn't align with what the dog likes to do. So, but it's for them. So, yeah.
I love that approach.
Yeah, definitely. What has been your favorite thing about competing with your dogs?
Yeah, I think just seeing them build confidence and get better at things and kind of like reach their potential, I think has been my favorite thing, especially yeah, both Coda and Aspen, like seeing where they were 3 years ago to now, like dog sports have kind of transformed what they've become. So I think, yeah, that's probably my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like there's been big differences from when you got them to where they are now and the training you've done and
Yeah.
all of that journey
Yeah,
along the way.
for sure. Yeah, we've built a lot of drive, done a lot of conditioning, obviously, and then just like building that relationship, I think has made a huge difference with our training in general and just how we interact.
Yeah. And how do you feel like competing with your dogs kind of has changed your relationship with them, or has it? Do you feel like it would be the same relationship?
I think it's definitely made it stronger and made us closer. We're more of a team. I definitely am able to read the dogs a little bit better now because we've done so many different types of things together. We've had so many different types of scenarios. So I think just kind of strengthened our ability to communicate with one another. I think that's probably like the biggest thing.
Yeah, because the more experiences you have, the more tools you have in your toolbox to pull from.
Yeah.
Not everything has to be a nail and a
Yes,
hammer.
exactly.
Do you mind if we touch on kind of the cost of some of the sports, getting into the sports and then maintaining sports and
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that's fine. Yeah.
not to do a deep dive in your personal budgeting, but
Yeah, so definitely dogs, I mean, pets in general are expensive. And I grew up in the
yes.
horse world, so I kind of like knew what this sort of competing with your animals cost because horses are definitely a little bit more pricey, but trial entry fees are all kind of similar there. Some sports are definitely more pricey than others if you have to do more training for them. Like we were talking about agility, a lot of times you have to do that like multiple times a week to be able to compete, and that can definitely add up. A lot of agility competitors do like one-on-ones, do private lessons, things like that in the sport. It's a little bit more complex, so there's a lot to learn. That can be a little more pricey than frisbee, where all you have to do is kind of show up, get a few frisbees, and that's where you're at. And then obviously pet insurance, vet bills is something you kind of have to add in there as well. With sports does come a little bit of a risk in getting injured, maybe being exposed to more dogs that might be sick. So that's just something you kind of have to keep in the back of your head.
Yeah, I
So
hadn't
having,
even thought of that portion like that.
yeah,
Yeah, you are exposing your dog to other dogs who could potentially be sick. I was always thinking injury like, oh, we ran too hard and now we have a pulled muscle or we have a
yeah.
strained whatever. But yeah.
Even at just being in the same environment at a practice, kennel cough can be transmitted, I believe, through the air, through water
Yeah.
droplets. So that's something that's always kind of in my head. And then equipment like crates, you need a car crate, you need a house crate, you need
Yeah.
fans, especially in Arizona, you need fans like an aluminette, which is like the reflective sheet you can put on your car, toys for the sport, treat, all those sort of things definitely add up. But I don't think that the cost outweighs the benefits for your dog. I think that if I wasn't doing dog sports, I'd still be doing other things with them that might just be slightly less pricey, like, oh, we're going to go camping, hiking, we're going to go do other things. So I think that, it's all kind of where you want to put that time and that money into it.
Like all sports, it can be as expensive as you want. Like
Yeah.
everyone will say like running is a cheap sport because you just need to like have tennis shoes and
Yeah.
run. But then there's certain bottles and like certain clothes and then race entry fees and it can add up.
And
Just
Yeah.
fancier sneakers.
And
yeah.
like with dog sports, I feel like there's always a heavy emphasis on competing, and you really don't have to compete, and that can save you a lot of money. So the dog doesn't know a difference between if you're at a trial or at a practice. So
Sure.
if competing's not important to you, but you still want to go out and do things with your dog, like you can still go to practices. There's no pressure on that. I've never been to a place where they're like, you have to trial to be here. In the horse world, I have where they're like, if you're not competing, you can't, ride here. But dog world, I feel like is a little bit more open. We just want more people doing more things with their dogs. So that's always a way to kind of cut costs, is going to less competitions or just not going at all. Like the dog's still going to have a good time. So
Yeah. They're like an average kind of entry fee for, I know every sport is a little different, but is there kind of an average that you see?
yeah, for the sports that I do, I say it's between, on the low end would be like 15 to $20, and then on the high end would be like 30 to 45 an
Okay.
entry per. So like for dock diving, it's I think 20 or 25 per jump, and you can do up to 4 a day. So that can add up, especially if you have multiple dogs.
Sure. Yeah.
But you also don't have to do 4 a day. Not many people do 4 a day. That's a lot
Right.
for a dog. So I'll
For
definitely,
a day over a weekend, three
yeah, if
times.
you do
Yeah, that's a
3 days,
lot.
like
Yeah.
something I do to save a little bit of money is I don't ever really go on Fridays. So I only do 2 days, and then I'll only do two distance splashes and then one of the specialties. And then Aspen, like if I don't think he's feeling it, like he doesn't have to trial. He really doesn't know the difference. So then maybe he won't get signed up for that weekend, but he'll still get to go to practices every week. So
something I was surprised about myself is with my last foster, we tried fast cats, and Heather helped me hold him. And then I went down to the other end, and mostly he just ran to me. He didn't much care about he had a strong prey drive, but he was like,
he didn't care about that bag. He
no,
loved you.
he was like, Mom. But what I was surprised was how addictive it is, because I kept telling Heather, I was like, he can go faster.
yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna put $20 more down.
You
He
did.
can go
You
faster
kept.
than that.
You
I'm
were
gonna
like,
put $20 more down. And Heather's like, stop.
Yeah.
Foster.
Yeah.
I was like, he's having fun. We're gonna rest him for 10 minutes and then we're gonna do it again.
Yeah, because they'll go all day. You're like, they want to keep going. So
Yep.
might as well.
But he was hot, and Heather pointed that out, and we did stop.
It is funny though, because you do kind of get in that little like that little spirit of like, oh, but I bet they could do better.
Huh?
And that's one thing that's nice when you go to a trial and there's no day of show entries, because
Yes,
you have no choice. Whatever you entered and you're done.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
If someone was listening and wanted to get started in sports, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think something that I wish somebody told me in the beginning is like, don't get discouraged if you're just starting out and, oh, maybe your dog's not totally into it or they're not doing as great as all the other dogs that you see at practice. It can take a long time and a lot of training, a lot of practice for certain dogs to do certain sports. And it doesn't mean that they won't enjoy it. For example, Coda in the beginning did not want anything to do with barn hunt. She saw the rat and she ran the other way. She's like, this is gross.
Oh.
I don't want anything to do with this. And now she's like a maniac. We pull up to the barn hunt practice place. She's barking. She's crazy. She loses her mind. But it took probably about 6 to 9 months going to practices for her it to really click. And she's like, oh, I get the game. I love this game. It's fun. And now she's great at it. We're at the top level. We're a master. So like just not getting discouraged in the beginning, like you might need to do a little bit of drive building, you might need to like work on some things in practice, but not everything is immediate. There are those people that can bring their dog to the dock and the first time they'll jump off and they'll jump, 10, 15 feet into the pool, but it's not like that for everybody. Same with my dogs, both took, over a year to get from end to end to get off the dock. So
Is that how long it took? A year?
for Coda, if you're counting, she, as a puppy, she wouldn't even go near water. She was terrified of
Wow.
the pool. She would run the other way. My mom has a pool and in Ohio, and we would go over to swim, and Aspen would go in the water because he loves it, and Coda would be sitting under the pool chairs and like shaking in her little life vest.
Oh.
I don't want to go in there. And then eventually, she started seeing Aspen going in, and we'd work at lakes and beaches. And we went to the lake like every week, went to different types of pools, sniff spots, all this different stuff, and then did dog classes every single week. And eventually she got off. I never thought the sport would be for her. I actually started it for Aspen. So the fact that I didn't get discouraged, I feel like a lot of people would have been like, oh, she doesn't like water. Like she's gonna hate it. I was like, no, I think she might like it. Like, let's just keep trying. And now it's her favorite thing. So I think just not getting discouraged if something takes you maybe a little longer than somebody else, or maybe like the first time doesn't go like you expect, don't give up so soon. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say when I did scent work with my last dog, Lucy, my pit bull, the first day, she had a lot of noise phobias and a lot of noise sensitivity. And so I put like a noise, a noise thing muffler over her earmuffs on her. And she was the only dog not kenneled because she couldn't be. And so she was like the exception in every way. And of course, like the person who only does purebred spaniels was like, oh, she must be so hard to live with. Like, she's not. It's just that your dog is screaming and has been for like 45 minutes straight. Like she's over threshold. And I remember asking Heather, I said, Heather, I mean, I spent the money, but I don't care. I'm going to just not go back, I think, because she was so
It was a
over
lot.
threshold.
yeah.
And I was like, there's like 4 dogs that scream for the entire hour. They never stop screaming. I was like, and then There's 2 dogs that lunge anytime anybody walks by, and she's like terrified to walk by their kennels. It's just too much. And Heather said, okay, what if you just like went one more time, but be prepared to walk out even in the first 5 minutes if it's too much for her. And I said, yeah, I don't mind walking out. I could do it. And everybody had calmed down by the second one. Only one dog was screaming, and that dog just screamed the whole time. And and then we learned a new path to go around the lunging dog. And she loved scent work so much. So I love what you're saying. Like, don't get discouraged, but also, like Heather told me to, but be prepared if it's detrimental to your dog to walk away. Even if you spent $200 for class.
Yeah. Keeping those sessions like short, keeping it positive is like so important. That's what I try to do with all of these sports, just keeping it really short and fun, and don't overdo it.
Yeah. And it goes back to knowing your dog. I knew Lucy really well, so I was able to kind of help Christy evaluate how to move forward. Were we pushing it too far? All of that stuff. And knowing your individual dog, because what Tater can handle and what Tiago can handle is completely different. And you have to just be willing to say, and sometimes it's not even, oh, this isn't the right sport for us. It might just be today's not the day, and that's all right. It's really all right, because maybe tomorrow's the day, and knowing your dog and really just being in it with them, and not kind of, as much as possible, not worrying about what everybody else is doing, I think is really the way to go. It's really fun if you have a friend in the class. That's even better. Yeah. Or make friends with people. I mean, some of the best people I've met through class and had connections with them for whatever reason. So there's that too.
Yeah.
I know. Okay, this is not on your questionnaire.
We always got one, at least
I know.
one.
Well, I have like 2 that I'm dying to know. I know on your Instagram, you just recently did like a get to know you, and you said that you kayak. Do you ever take your dogs kayaking with you?
Yeah, I actually went maybe not last week or the week before with my dad for Father's Day. My boyfriend, my dad, and I went, and we brought Aspen. So Coda can go kayaking. One, she wants to just swim the whole time, but she gets something called swimmer's tail if her tail is wet with cold water and not dried off for a certain period of time. It's a very specific type of injury she can get. So we're like, Coda can stay home. This could be Aspen's day, but he loves kayaking. Like, it's one of his favorite things. We went to a few different lakes in Arizona. We used to kayak in Ohio when he was younger, but yeah, tons of fun.
Definitely. It's one of my goals with Trin. I really want to get her on a kayak.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. This last time we went, there were some wild burros on the shore.
Oh, how was that?
Yeah, we were out on the kayak, and I'm just waiting for him to see them, because I'm like, he's gonna see them. There was like 10 of them. They had babies. We're in the kayak, and he just starts husky screaming from 45 feet away. And he's just laying there with his head on there, like shaking, screaming because he wants to get to them. I'm like, oh my gosh. But he doesn't try to jump out. He doesn't try to do anything
That's
crazy.
great.
But he's funny. He watches for all the fish. He watches for all the wildlife. That's like his thing. So.
That's cool.
Yeah, I actually bought an inflatable kayak for my last dog because I was hopeful she might want to kayak. And I was like, it is entirely too expensive, but I was like, I don't care. This is the one that she would be most comfortable in. I'm going to buy it and see if she likes it.
She was also like 9 by then.
Yeah. I was like, well, we're down to our last year. Like, I want to do all the things.
Yeah.
We got out a few times.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
She loved it. And she loved my dad's boat. Like, my dad has like an aerator in the boat. So if you catch fish, it keeps them alive well. That's the word I'm looking for. And she would like dunk her head in and try to bop for fish and like try to get them out.
That's so cute.
So my other question that's not on the list is, I know you said that you come from a background of equine competition. So has some of that training kind of crossed over into the dog training?
Yeah, like 1,000%. And I know so many people that do dog sports and dog training that come from the horse world.
Yeah.
It's actually like so wild to me how similar it is, especially dog sports specifically. But a lot of just like the theory of animal training is similar, well, the same across species. So classical conditioning, operant conditioning, like pressure on, pressure off, all of that is stuff I learned, growing up riding. And so kind of translating over to training dogs was super easy because I already knew all of those concepts and like rewarding and like the release and like things like that. Obviously with horses, it's not as much positive reinforcement because logistically, there are a lot of people trying to do more of that in the horse
Yeah,
world now, which I love. And
I love it
honestly,
too.
yeah, I took a little break riding when I moved here a few years ago, but if I was riding now, I'd like to do a little bit more of that because
Yeah.
I see the theory and I see how it works so well with dogs. So I don't see why we're not doing more of it in the horse world.
Yeah.
But a lot of just like training in general overlaps pretty pretty well between the two. And I always was that type of person. Like I had friends who were super competitive in the horse world, and I always had like kind of, oh, I had like a rescue horse for a while, and like we were just doing it for fun. They had fancy imported horses and got a new one every year.
Yeah.
And like I was more like, oh, I never want to get rid of this. This horse, this is my pet, this is my family. We're just out here to like have a good time. Whereas like I see a lot of that sort of mentality in the dog world as well, where there's people that have different types of dogs and they're crating all day and then they come out for the competitions. And I'm more so like sleep on the couch with me and they're, involved in my everyday life. And the horses was kind of just the same for me. Like I would go out and not even ride and just brush them and sit in the pasture and like hang out. So I think that sort of mentality transferred over as well to dog stuff. So
I love that.
So, what is a favorite or a most memorable moment that you've had, I would say, with each of your dogs since you've started doing sports with them?
yeah, just like at a sport event specifically, or
I think even training for
yeah,
a sport, yeah.
yeah, I think this last dog trial when Coda hit 30 feet, I think that was pretty memorable.
That's pretty memorable.
I was like, I told the judge beforehand at practice, I was like, yeah, Coda won't hit 30. If she hits 30, like I'll poop my pants. And he
Well, did
remembered
you?
that. Yeah, no. But he remembered that. So when you go and dock, like you throw the toy, the dog jumps, and then they tell you what your score was for that one. You get to go twice. So the first one went, and he's like, I'm not going to tell you. And then the second one we went, and he's like, you better find a bathroom. You better go over to the porta because she hit 30, she got 35, and I was like in awe. I didn't
Wow.
even think it was real. So I think that was probably
Yeah, I'd say that's a good one.
I didn't think that she would ever get there. Like when she first started and she hit like 10 feet, I was so excited and it was the best thing in the world. So to see her here is wild. And then yeah, with Aspen, I feel like just anytime that he's super enthusiastic is something that's super exciting for me. So in his first barn hunt trial, he was losing his mind in the blind. He's so excited to go. He's like, this is going to be the best thing ever. And I think he found the rat in like, I don't even know how many seconds it was, but it was very quick. And I was just so excited to see him like having such a good time and doing so well. And then he tunneled and he climbed, he did all the things, and he was just wagging his tail, leaving. I think that was probably one of my favorites. He has always been like a little bit secondary to like in the frisbee or in the dock diving. And so I was like, oh, this barn hunt stuff is like, this is his jam. And he had such a fun time. So yeah.
It's like it all came together and he just was like right in the moment with you.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, Christy, do you have any hiding questions? Did you hit them all?
I think I got you by surprise. I got mine in.
We very much appreciate you
Yeah.
joining us and being willing to talk to us about all sports with adopted dogs because I just really think it's awesome. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. Obviously, I'm passionate about it. Tater was a bit of a surprise in an adopted dog who has kind of rose to the occasion. So I just think it's really, really cool for people to know that there's a lot of opportunity regardless of where your dog came from. So Thank you so much for joining us. And do you want to share your Instagram handle with everybody so that they can give you a follow since you're a public IG?
Oh, geez. Yeah.
No pressure.
Yeah, my TikTok and Instagram is the same. It's at Coda Aspen, but it's spelled like the names are smushed together. So it's KOTASPEN. And apparently, well, this is news to me, but everyone thought that it was Coda's pen. Like that's what my username was.
It
Like we just thought it was
actually
like
is
Coda's.
that way in my head.
Yeah, she's writing her story with her pen. I'm
Oh,
like, oh, that's new. Yeah. I'm
I
like,
know.
yeah,
Yeah, I know it's Coda Aspen, but like for some reason when I see it in my head, I think Coda's pen. I
yeah,
don't, yeah.
yeah. Some people were like, or then they would see their first post of Aspen, and they'd be like, oh, I get your username now. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, I mean,
Coda and
I like
Aspen.
Dakota's pen. Like that feels very deep.
Oh
yeah.
yeah. And someone was like, oh, or it could be like her playpen. I'm like, yeah, I guess whatever. I'm like,
Whatever has you remembering it is great.
it's funny. I didn't realize till like recently that was
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
I'll take
That's
it.
so funny. I know. Well, I hope people start following you because we love your training content. We love your messages. And we definitely think that your relationship with your dogs is something to aspire to. So
Yeah. Thank
thank
you.
you so much.
You too. I love watching you work your dogs, and I'm glad that we've gotten to meet both in person and online. So
I know. I think there's more some future to come with Little Miss Trin. So we'll be seeing each other out and about.
yeah, I'm excited.
Thanks so much for being here, Marissa.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you so much. If you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and share us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, come on over to Instagram and engage with us at Sometimes There's Side Eye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.